Hello and welcome to the Convergent video series for the week of November 16th. Top three things we're going to cover on the video this week. First, the markets were up last week on positive vaccine news, which outweighed rising COVID cases as well as the continued contested election. Two, we're going to touch on a lot of economic data, especially around employment and how we're seeing some positive trends, at least in the reports. And then finally, we're going to touch on just some short-term things we're keeping an eye on that are leading to some level of uncertainty. But before we jump into the data, I hope you all had a great weekend and I hope you're staying safe and healthy. With everything going on, we wanted to continue to keep you as up to date on everything as we could. And so we've decided to start a monthly Facebook live broadcast where we're going to be bringing some information that we think is valuable to you, as well as having the opportunity for you on a live basis to be able to ask questions on anything that you might be wondering about or concerned about. So we'll be announcing a lot more about that here in the next couple of days. So keep an eye out for that information. So on to the data for the week. First, as we mentioned, the markets were up. The S&P was up about 2% on the week last week. It was up a lot early in the week on the Pfizer news that dropped just before the market opened on Monday. But we actually saw the market pretty much get all of that taken back away by Thursday when the markets were relatively flat before a big up move on Friday, which I think a lot of that was people anticipating, or at least knowing, maybe a few people knowing that Moderna was going to be coming out with their positive news early this week. So we're also seeing some positive moves in the market earlier this week. So overall, the vaccine news is very positive for the market short term, and so we'll have to see where that goes and see if we see the similar kind of trend in the markets that we saw last week, where kind of the market jumped early before pulling back later in the week. So on to some of the economic data. First, we'll start with unemployment. New claims for unemployment came in around 700,000, and new pandemic claims came in around 300,000. So still about 1 million a week of new claims for unemployment. And we're starting to see some more localized shutdowns due to the virus. And so we'll see if that's going to have another impact and see a jump in those claims here in the near future. In terms of continuing claims, as well as total claims overall, we're seeing continually positive trends of lowering numbers in both of those overall big charts. However, as we've been talking for the last month or so, one of our concerns was that a lot of the drop in both the state continuing claims as well as the overall total claims was more related to the fact that a lot of these people were just falling out of eligibility. And so we've been able to find some data on that where we're actually seeing a good chunk of the people falling out of the continuing claims. It's just being replaced by those going on these emergency pandemic claims, which is the replacement for the state programs, as well as some potential for people having gone back to work or just falling out of the job market altogether. So while the trends are positive in terms of the reports that are coming out, there's still some concerns in terms of is the jobs market still as healthy as the numbers are starting to show. On to some other economic data. Released last week, first consumer sentiment dropped quite a bit from last month's report, probably due to some uncertainty around the elections, as well as this rising COVID cases around the globe, but especially here in the U.S. So I do expect with the vaccine news that's come out in the last couple of weeks that this will probably recover going forward, but some concern there. And also if you look at some other economic trends that are a little troubling short term, is we've started to see credit card spending level off and even go negative over the last couple of weeks as well. So again, that's showing probably some lack of mobility due to some of these lockdowns. And so that's going to be some of the short-term things we're watching here in the near term. And so, some of those things that we want to keep an eye on, although this vaccine news is very positive, the reality is we're months away from this vaccine, any of these vaccines being really available to the public. In any sort of meaningful way. And so maybe 6 months to 12 months really before things are really moving. And so with that, with the level of rising claims or rising cases and rising hospitalizations, we're still kind of just getting into the worst of it with the winter, which is typically cold and flu season. And so there's still a lot to be concerned about whether these rising cases on the short term is going to have some sort of meaningful impact before we can get to the other side of this with those vaccines being available. And with that, we still have this contested election. And so while it looks really likely at this point that Biden is going to be the ultimate winner for the presidential election, it is 2020, so you never know what might happen here. But really the most important races at this point that are left are the Senate. And right now it's 50-48 with Republicans being ahead. However, both of the Georgia seats are going into a runoff on January 5th. And depending on how that shakes out, whether the Republicans end up getting at least one of those seats and getting a majority in the Senate, or whether the Democrats win both of those seats, will have an impact on policy. We do think if the Republicans maintain control, a lot of the current policies in place will probably stay about the same. There's going to be a lot of gridlock, and probably also means a lower level of stimulus. However, if the Democrats win both of those seats, we're likely to see a big jump in stimulus next year, but also something that could offset that is a large rise in taxes. But overall, as we reported in last week and some of the emails that we sent out, Over the long run, the market doesn't really care about who's in office. It really cares a matter of what's just going on overall with growth. And bottom line, really, these vaccine announcements between Pfizer and Moderna are very positive. That we think over the long run, we just think there's some short-term hurdles we have to get through. But it does look like things should be in a much better position next year as we head into 2021. So with that, as always, if you have any individual questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we hope you have a great week, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.